Hey guys, Preston here. Welcome back to another video. Today we are doing another positional breakdown for the Pittsburgh Steelers. This time we are doing the running backs. We're kind of going in an actual order now, so we're going to do, we did quarterbacks, now our running backs, wide receivers, already did tight ends, so probably go O-line, etc. Work through the offense, then head over to the defense, so it all should be fun here. But the first guy we're going to talk about is who is expected to be running back one in this year for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and that is James Conner. He is 25 years old. He's been playing for 3 years. Third-round pick back in 2017, if you remember. I think he was one of our 2 third-round picks that year. First thing we're going to do, like I've done in all these videos, we're going to look at their contract and then talk about their stats and kind of what this 2020 could be and maybe even what you expect in the future. Contract-wise, James Conner is set to have $1 million cap hit this season. His dead cap would only be $176,000 if they did cut him, which is very unlikely. I mean, he's pretty much slated to be running back one at least this year. The only problem is this is the last year of his deal. He becomes an unrestricted free agent in 2021 in his year 26 season. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens here. So far, he's been cheap, but obviously that was his rookie deal. And once you're done with the rookie deal, you're always going to want more money. Connor's in more of an interesting position because obviously he's had injury issues, and he had his worst season yet coming off of 2019, which means, this is really a prove-it year for him to try to see how much he's worth. But even then, I don't know if you're going to want to pay him or not. I've had a pretty firm stance on not paying running backs. I know some people are like, get the man his money or whatever, but to me, it's like I'm focused on the team, not more about obviously if I was like a player union guy or something, I'd be like, yeah, get him paid. But the reality with these running backs is a lot of the times, if you give him a big contract, it doesn't work out real well. Bell hasn't panned out for the Jets. Gurley got paid huge, could barely play, had some issues left already. Melvin Gordon tried to get paid, held out. Chargers ended up with a better running back, in my opinion, on a cheaper deal. And so it's just, I think we're in a reality where a lot of running backs don't get paid. So unless Conner accepts a very reasonable deal, there's a chance he'll be gone after this year. But like I said, he really has a lot to prove, because if he doesn't prove anything, it's not likely to be a huge market for him anyways. So, yeah, now let's go on to the next contract right here. This is a guy who might be the future starter. It all depends on how this works out. He might be the 2021 starter pending a free agent or a rookie coming in, anything like that. That is obviously Snell Jr., who is in his second year of his 4-year rookie contract. So last year he had a $670,000 cap hit. This year he's set to have an $850,000 cap hit, raising slightly each year. By 2022, which is the last year of his deal, he'll have a $1.1 million cap hit. His dead cap is still high this year. It only saves around $300,000 to cut him, which we won't anyways. He's on a very cheap deal, and there's no reason to cut him. I like what he showed us last year and the little playing time he had. I thought he did a very good job filling in, and I think that was his first year. And second year is really when you see some growth. Second year is kind of how Le'Veon Bell exploded in his second year. Obviously, Benny Snell's not Le'Veon Bell, but the sophomore slump hopefully doesn't happen. A lot of times with the Steelers, at least with the running backs, I feel like we actually get better the second year, not a slump. They improve, which is obviously what you want to see. And so, like we said, he's locked up till 2022, and so obviously Connor's ends this season, and Snell's got 2 more years after that, so it'll be interesting to see what that does. Snell is pretty much set to be that backup running back right now. I don't think he'll, unless they do committee, which is kind of what I'd hope for. Because honestly, you look at the teams in the Super Bowl this year, man, they didn't have one star workhorse running back. They had a committee. The 49ers had 3 running backs who they're using all the time. That's what they like. And I think we need to expand our offense to handle that. And hopefully, they added Matt Canada in, who was known to run stuff like that in college, and maybe that's kind of what they're hoping to do, because that'd make a lot of sense to me with this running back room, because they have different needs. Conner and Snell can both kind of run you over. I think Conner still had slightly more agility and is better at these outside runs and straight through the middle. Snell is a guy you could use on those 3rd and 1s, stuff like that. I think he's a good pounded forward back. He's got the frame for that, and then he'll see what he goes. If either puts on weight or cuts a little bit to get faster, adds more to get stronger. We'll have to see what he does in this 2020 season. But cap-wise, he's set. These are all young guys. We really don't have anyone with a big cap hit, and the only person with an expiring deal is James Conner, I believe. Jaylen Samuels has 1 more year after this. This 2020 season, he's set to make $814,000. He could be cut very easy if they wanted to. The dead cap's only $129,000. And next season, 2021, he's set to make $984,000 with a dead cap of only $64,000. So really, it depends on who they want to keep in this running back room. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like 6 running backs I'm talking about in this video, and it's very unlikely I keep 6 running backs. I mean, one of them might be able to stick around in the practice squad, but Samuels definitely isn't one. Samuels is who you would consider maybe a trade candidate. Like, if they see something more in Kerrith White, or if they only want to keep 3 running backs, Connor, Snell, and the rookie. Samuels, you could get somewhere between the 5th to 7th round pick for him, I personally believe. He's only 23 years old. He's on a cheap deal, and his last season isn't great, but when he played with Ben, he had a pretty good year, I'd say, for a 5th round pick. He's still developing. I like his versatility. Like I said, if they do a committee, he's the receiving back now. We used to have a guy who could do it all. Snap. Bell could run you over, run around you, and catch. Connor is getting better at receiving, but has had some issues. I really don't believe in Benny Snell's receiving skills right now. Obviously, he could improve. He was just a rookie last year, but he's more of a pure running back, I'd say. Samuels played everywhere in college. He's a tight end, a running back, a wide receiver, and so he's that perfect kind of scat back, he's a receiving back role that fits him very well. He will be in competition, though, because to me, there's 2 other guys that kind of fit that Jaylen Samuels mold. But Samuels, contract-wise, is in a decent spot. If we cut him or trade him, it wouldn't be because he's expensive. It's because we want that roster spot. Next up is Kerrith White, who's very likely. I liked him a lot. I liked his potential, but there's a good chance he ends up. Hopefully, he can stick on our practice squad, or he ends up with a new team, just because there's a good chance he gets cut. This is a guy, I feel like him and Samuels are kind of competing for the same role, like I said, which means he could lose out just because they actually. There's always an investment theme with these NFL teams, and they spent an actual draft pick to get Jaylen Samuels, as where Kerrith White was picked up off the Bears practice squad late into this season. There's always that kind of thing, it's like they might give the benefit of doubt to the guy with more experience and that they actually drafted and invested in personally. But Samuel's White cap-wise, his cap hit's not crazy either, $675,000. There's no dead cap if we cut him, which is interesting. So he could be cut very easy or tried to be traded. I don't know if that has a market, then maybe a 7th round pick, maybe a 7th round next year, that kind of thing, where you just trade because you want to get something for him because you were going to cut him anyways, which tends to happen in the offseason. Granted, with this weird offseason, I don't know how this is all going to work. It's kind of hard. We don't have a lot of time to scout these players and decide who you want to keep over who yet, so it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But he is an exclusive rights free agent in 2021, which would mean it'd be easier to sign him than some of these UFAs we have. But it's still up in the air, I'd say. But he is an ERFA after next year, so him and James Conner contracts are up after this season. Obviously, Conner's more valuable than Kerrith White. I do like Kerrith White's potential, though. He's a 7th round pick in 2019. And I think he's good. I liked what he showed us in this last season. Then we have Tre Edmonds, who to me is the most likely to be cut. He's 25 years old. He is making $825,000 this year if he's kept on the team, which is higher than. I think it's higher than Kerrith White. It's $825. We'll have to see if it's up there with. It's more than Jaylen Samuels this year, so there's a good chance he's cut, especially since. He was more of a blocker. He kind of filled in a fullback role a bit this year, and we just signed Derek Watt to be our fullback. So there's a good chance he's just gone after this season, if you ask me. Yeah, he's probably the most likely to be cut. He showed some flashes. He had like a 145-yard run early this season, which was cool, and obviously he's the brother of Tre Edmonds, our safety. Fun fact for you, though, Tre Edmonds has the same amount of interceptions in his career as his brother does. Isn't that great for us? Man, Terrell needs to learn how to. Maybe his brother can give him some lessons on how to get interceptions, I guess. But he is a UFA after this season, too. So we got 3 running backs with contracts up after this season. Obviously, the priority of contract in order would be James Conner, then Kerrith White, then Tre Edmonds. But Tre, to me, is very likely to end up being on our practice squad or off the team after camp. That's just kind of what I'm predicting. Obviously, anything can happen. He knows our system. But we'll see. The other guy I can't mention contract-wise because he still hasn't signed. I don't think, for some reason, Pittsburgh hasn't signed a single rookie yet, which is driving me insane. But in that is Anthony Mcfarland Jr. He was a 4th-round pick, so I guess he'll make 4th-round money. I really don't know what the standard 4th-round deal is, but it's just for reference. And Jaylen Samuel's first year as a rookie, he was a 5th-round pick, and his cap hit was $544,000. So it'll probably be somewhere around that $400,000 to $600,000 range for Anthony Mcfarland in his first year. And obviously, I believe it's standard. It's a 4-year deal for any pick outside the first round. So he'll be on a 4-year deal from 2021 to 2024. So he'll be on the team guaranteed for at least 4 years. Well, he can't leave by himself for at least 4 years, so we have him locked down. He was a very intriguing prospect in college. He's another guy who's super fast and can go around you. He's a pretty good back. I mean, he had some health issues last season, but I like his potential. I don't know, to me, I see him as in that sort of similar to Samuels and Kareth White role, which makes it kind of interesting. Again, it's kind of a battle for that fast outside back, and then Connor and Snell are your main two to begin with, if you ask me. But now let's look at some stats here, just over all of them, and that we'll start with James Earl Connor. I guess I've just learned his middle name here for us. Like I said, okay, so he's, according to Pro Football Reference, he's 6'1", 233 pounds. He is 25 years old and 56 days. That's real specific. But yeah, no. Okay, so career-wise, he got drafted in 2017 in the 3rd round, like I said. But he didn't really play a lot. He showed up in 14 games, but never started a single one. Obviously, 32 rushes for 144 yards, averaging 4.5 yards on average. 2018 was his breakout year, the year he made the Pro Bowl, the year with Big Ben, but without Le'Veon Bell, which is something we need to focus on. And that was a year he had injury issues once again. So he only started 12 games and appeared in 13. He missed 3 games, I guess. If you go off the games he appeared in, he missed 3 games. And he had 215 rushes, which is another thing there. That's almost like 100 more than he had this past season, which obviously factors in the amount of yards he's getting. And he had 973 yards, so close to 1,000. If he didn't miss those 3 games, he would have had a 1,000-yard season his first year as a starter. And 12 touchdowns. He averaged 4.5 yards on average, which is just like the time before, and 74, almost 75 yards a game on average, which is good. On the receiving aspect, he had 71 targets for 51 receptions and 497 yards. So, not bad receiving-wise. I remember he had some drops that weren't great, but that happens to everyone. They don't have the drop numbers here, so I can't tell you the actual drops, but not bad. Fumbling was an issue in 2018 with 4 fumbles. But, in good news, on one of the few bright sides of this new season, the season he had a down year, he only fumbled once. He cut down on 3 fumbles, which is very good. And so the ball security is improved for him, which is kind of, to me, that was probably his biggest issue in 2018. He had 13 touchdowns total in 2018 and 7 in 2019. His totals were almost cut in half touchdown-wise. His yards from scrimmage in 2018 was 1,470. But actually, his rushing yards in 2019 was only 464. But if you add in his receiving yards, his yards from scrimmage was actually 715. And that was because the run game struggled a lot this year, as we know, because they stacked the crap out of the box. But they got Connor a decent amount on these really short, outside passes, screens, just quick tosses, and he made the most of those. He worked very well in space. If we look at his receiving yards in 2019, he had 34 receptions for 251 yards. So that averaged, I think, is 7.4 yards of reception. He did good with what he had. 3 touchdowns off these receptions, which is 2 more than he had last season. The rushing is the more concerning part. His yards on average, his yards per carry average went down 0.5, which isn't horrible, all things considered, working with the line he had and missing that many games. But his yards a game dropped considerably to 46 from 74. There's a lot of factors with this, though, that I want to get into. The fact he missed 6 games, obviously, so that's a factor. Missing 6 games of your season, your numbers are going to be worse than the year before. But the other fact is, you wouldn't think a quarterback, by the way, I'm rocking a Ben jersey because the only Steelers running back jersey I've ever had is Rashard Mendenhall, which was clearly a mistake, but that doesn't even fit me anymore. But Big Ben plays a factor in this run game. He just does, because when Duck and Rudolph were on the field, defenses were not worried about getting hit over the top, and so they stacked the box. They put, all the linebackers, D-line, everyone played up close, and so it was a pain in the butt to run the ball, which is obviously would have been the easiest thing to do. They knew that's what we wanted to do, which would just be running the ball down their throats because we didn't have faith in our quarterbacks, and so that meant they effectively shut the run game down on us a lot. Give me 1 second. I had a plug in my laptop, so. Yeah, obviously, last time I look over here, I'm looking at the laptop for the stats and whatnot. So, yes. Okay, I think that's a pretty good analysis of his stats. Like I was saying, Ben being back just means inherently that they won't be able to stack the box as much. They'll have to play further back because Big Ben can still throw the ball, and we have even more weapons this year that really help break out the passing game. And when the passing game gets helped, it means it helps the running game too. So I think that alone will improve Connor's year. His biggest focus for me is just staying on the field. He already cut down on fumbles, which is nice. He was better on the receiving. The fact was, granted, I'm sure some of these passes weren't as hard as the ones Ben was throwing him because, like I said, there were a lot of real easy ones. But just off receiving, he caught 34 of the 38 passes that went his way, which is a significantly better catch rate. Oh, here it is. Yeah, his catching percentage went from 77.5 in 2018 to 89.5 in 2019. So he got better at catching the ball, and he fumbled less. Those are two big things. And I think just staying healthy and the defense is not being able to stack the box will help Connor significantly. I think he's getting more hate than he needs right now. I think he will have a very good year. The only thing after that is paying him in 2021, which will be a big focus. I'm not for giving him a huge contract. If he earns a huge contract, good for him. I hope he does well with whatever team's willing to pay it. But to me, you just can't pay running backs deals like that. All right, now we'll look at the next guy, the number 2, and maybe the running back of the future, depending on how he does this year and if Connor gets re-signed or not. And that is Snell Jr. I think he's junior or senior? Junior, yeah. I'd say senior, he'd have to have a kid. Either way, he is only 22 years old, and he was drafted last year in the 4th round, as I was mentioned. He's a bigger guy. It'll be interesting to see what he does here. He's at 5'10", 224. If he cuts down, he'll be more agile. I don't think he should add a bunch. If we're being honest, I wouldn't recommend that. Unless he wants to look like Jerome Bettis and really commit to running everyone over. Okay, in his 24 games, his 2019 season, his first season, he appeared in 13 games. Because remember, he had an injury too. He had to get a knee surgery, I believe, which led to him missing these 3 games. He started in 2, which is, I guess they did more of a committee thing. The other 6 games Connor missed, I'm not real sure, but apparently this claims he only started in 2. I think there's some overlap, unfortunately, where they were both out, which is just really showed how miserable our 2019 was with injuries. But either way, he had 108 rushes for 426 yards, 2 touchdowns is that first downs, I think? Let's read. Yeah, 19 first downs. And then his longest rushing attempt was 23. His yards on average needs to improve a little bit. He was close to 4, which I think you should have at least 4 yards a carry at 3.9. But like I said, he was working with the same issues that James Conner was, with a stacked box, no fear of the passing game. And I think the offensive line did have a down year compared to the season before. So all those play into these kind of numbers. 3.9 is not bad, all things considered, for a rookie running back thrusted into a starting role that he wasn't ready for, dealing with defenses knowing that they didn't have to fear the passing game. His yards a game is only at 32, but that was a problem for the entire running backs. Like I said, James Conner's yards per game was also only in the 40s. Receiving-wise, like I said, there was not much there at all. He had 4 targets and 3 receptions for 23 yards. So there was basically nothing there. But his yards per scrimmage, 450. He fumbled once, which isn't great. So on 108 rushes, he fumbled 1 of them, which I don't know what that percentage is. It's not horrible. It's better than the 4 that Connor had his rookie year. For a rookie, though, for a 4th-round rookie, all things considered, I thought he had a very good season. He really kind of came onto his own in the end, because obviously I think most of these yardage and stuff is from those 2 games he started by himself. It might have been that Baltimore game that the last game of the year where we were garbage. I think he might have killed that game. We'll have to see. I think they do game stats here. Yeah, okay. So his best game by far was his rookie, the last game of the season last year. He had 18 attempts for 91 yards and a touchdown, and he averaged 5 yards a carry. So he ended the season on a good note. A game that we did horrible. Honestly, the Steelers gave up that last game of the year. We were playing the Ravens backups, and we still lost 28-10. They just gave up. They were done after that Jets game, if we're being honest. But that was his best game by far, was that Ravens game. 18 attempts for 91 yards, averaging 5 yards a carry, which is a very good average. You want at least 4. 5's great, and a touchdown. So let's hope he can kind of build off the momentum he had that last game of the year and carry it into the season. Obviously, he didn't get a real proper offseason with the team, which always sucks, but he has workouts by himself. He'll get some sort of a camp this season to help improve as a whole, and I think he can be a very solid backup for us. And knowing James Conner, there's always a good chance he'll miss at least 3 to 4 games, and that'll give Benny Snell an opportunity to get more reps as a starter and maybe get groomed to be the future replacement for James Conner, but we'll have to see. Let me know what you guys think about Benny Snell. I think he's one of the more intriguing guys here. Obviously, a 4th-round pick's a bit late, but none of these guys were drafted above the 3rd round. So, yeah, just let me know how you think how Benny Snell will do next season, if he can actually be a future starter. Next up, we have Jaylen Samuels, who has been around for 2 seasons now. Obviously, his rookie year was the better year, and that was want to hone in on that because that was a year with Big Ben when he didn't have to deal with stacked boxes and etc. So that year, he played in 14 games, started 3, I guess. He had 56 rushes for 256 yards, 0 touchdowns, but averaged 4.6 yards a carry, which is very good. Let's see. His attempts a game was only 4, so that's a thing to focus on, obviously, is the fact that he didn't get a ton of carries, but he did the best of what he could with it. I mean, on those attempts he averaged 4.6 yards an attempt, which is very good. The receiving is, I think, one of the more things we can focus on. He caught 26 passes of the 29 he was thrown for 199 yards, averaging 7.7 yards of reception, and 3 touchdowns for an 89.7% catch rate, which is pretty good. He only fumbled once, too, which I liked a lot. So 455 yards from scrimmage. His yards from scrimmage actually went up this year to 480, but his touchdowns went down 1, and his fumbles stayed the same, but his touches went up. So his catch rate went down, but we'll have to see. Receiving-wise, did he get more? He got thrown to a lot this year, but a lot of those were baby passes like I talked about. He got 47 receptions for 305 yards and a touchdown. His rushing went down pretty bad, though. That was the biggest thing. He had 10 more rushes this year than last year, but had less yards, going from 256 to 175 with 1 touchdown and as long of only 13. The yards per attempt is a more miserable part of 2.7. I haven't fully given up on Jaylen Samuels. I believe he can bounce back, and like I said, with every other running back, just having Ben's presence back alone should help this run game in general. I think Steven Wisniewski, whoever they play at offensive line, I think this offensive line will probably be better than it was last year, actually. I liked Ramon Foster, but he was obviously kind of older, and it's kind of going down a little bit. We'll have to see how this offensive line performs, just kind of shaking it up, see how it works out. But I think they'll do pretty well this year, and like I said, when you're not stacking a box, it's easier to run. So Samuel's an interesting prospect, an interesting kid to look at. He's in his 3rd year now, so it's really not time to mess around. But if he has another bad year, he could definitely be out, at least after that next season, on the last year of his contract, I would believe, in the 2021 season. Kareth White, like I said, he appeared in 6 games. He never started any of them, but he had 24 rushes for 122 yards, averaging 5.1 yards an attempt. No touchdowns, but the 5.1 yards attempt is the best we've seen so far for a season, and that's what I liked the most about him. He's a quick kid, and he did punt. I think he did kick returns for us, which is something that was nice. Anytime Switzer wasn't taking returns, the better, right? So there's a chance he stays around as a return specialist. Like I said, I really don't know how they're going to go with the roster, but I liked him. He's an intriguing prospect, and the 5.1 yards an attempt is interesting to look at, and he did that with he only averaged 4 attempts a game. But I think a full year with us, he could really blossom out. Problem is, with all the running backs we have, we don't know if he'll be with the team or not. It'll be something to look at. Hopefully he could at least stay on our practice squad. Trey Edmonds, like I said, he's probably the most likely to leave if you ask me, but he didn't do horrible. This is the year he actually appeared in games. I think in 2018 he was on the practice squad the whole time. But in 2019, due to multiple injuries, he showed up in 11 games for 22 rushes for 92 yards, which is an average of 4.2, which is better than almost all the running backs that were playing this season. And he only averaged 2 attempts a game, so he did well with the attempts he got. Receptions-wise, he caught 6 of his 7 targets for 8 yards a target, which isn't horrible. Definitely not a receiving back, though. I'm guessing those were really small sort of passes. But not, like I said, it's hard to kind of look at just these numbers because a lot of these backs didn't have a lot of touches, but he did pretty well. That long of 45 is, I mean, that was, most of his rushing yards came from that 45-yard rush, so maybe that's something to kind of focus on. That, you know, 1 sec, let me do that math here. 90. I'm too smart. I'm too dumb. Yeah, he'd only have 47 yards in a year, 2 more yards than his longest rush, so that's definitely padding his stats a bit. To me, he's probably the most likely to be gone. He's slightly older than the rest at 25. This is another position that's super young on this team. The running back room, along with the receiving room, incredibly young. Just incredibly young, so there's plenty of potential there. But to me, Trey's most likely to be cut. He did decent for what his role was last season, though, and I respect him for it. The last guy to look at would be Anthony Mcfarland. He's making the team regardless. If you ask me, you're not going to cut a rookie you spent a 4th-round pick on, your first 4th-round pick, I believe. In college, he did pretty well. He did not play in 2017. I'm guessing he redshirted it, and then his redshirt freshman year he had. This is his biggest year. He appeared in 12 games for 131 attempts, gaining 1,077 yards. But I guess he lost yardage too, so that put him to 1,034 yards on the year, averaging 7.89 yards a carry, getting 4 touchdowns. In 2019, his numbers were down a bit, slightly less attempts at 114, gaining 646, losing 32 to average of 614, which is way down than the year before. But his average still stayed at a respectable 5.39 yards per carry, playing in the Big Ten with a pretty rough Maryland team last season. His yards per game went down to 55.8, but he also doubled his touchdowns, going to 8 touchdowns. I like this kid. I believe his most notable game was against a ranked Ohio State team. He had 200 plus yards and 2 touchdowns. He competed at a high level in a Big Ten, which is a very good conference, especially for defenses. And so I think he can really make a big impact immediately on this team, especially if they go running back by committee. I'd look at him to get I would imagine if he's taking any carries, it'll be that 5 to 10 carries per game in that Jaylen Samuels role. To me, I really want them to go running back by committee, but from everything I've heard, Tomlin's pretty set on making James Conner the feature back, and if he can handle the load, that's fine. If he kills it this year, thank goodness, I'd love it. But I think it's good for everyone, even Conner, who's had injury issues. If you spread the carries and put less, it's just less of a workload on your body dealing each time. But yeah, if I had to predict who stays on this team, if they carry 4, it'll be Conner, Snell, Mcfarland, Samuels, with Kerrith Whyte just on the outside, maybe on the practice squad. If they carry only 3, it's got to be Conner, Snell, and the rookie Mcfarland. So to me, the most likely to be cut is Tre Edmonds and Kerrith Whyte. Unfortunately, I'd love to keep Whyte, but like I said, I think Samuels probably edges him out off experience and the fact we actually drafted him. But hopefully Whyte would be able to stick on our practice squad, although I don't know. I think there's a place for him somewhere, some backfield. He could be a number 3 or number 4 running back. But yeah, guys, let me know what you think of this running back room. It's young, not a lot of experience, but I think it can do well, especially, like I said, the biggest factor is just Ben being back means that defenses can't stack the box, and that should help the run game alone. But this team's already said they're committed to running the ball more this year. We'll have to see. There's a chance that the quarterbacks coach we brought in, Matt Canada, ends up being a sort of run game coordinator secretly, which is something teams tend to do. You have run game, pass game coordinators, stuff like that, along with an actual offensive coordinator. But we know Randy Fichtner sucks, and Big Ben's their real coordinator. So we'll see how it goes. I'm pretty confident about this running back room. I know some people are down on it, but I really think James Conner can bounce back. If his health is the biggest thing, he just can't miss as many games. 6 games is a lot to miss for a starting running back. But hopefully he's healthier. He's been working out like crazy. He just looks stronger, and hopefully that means his body can hold up a bit longer. I still think it's in everyone's best interest if they do a more of a committee approach. We will have to wait and see. But it's a really young running back room with plenty of potential. And so I am not as pessimistic about it as some other people are. So thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you think about the Steelers running back room, and maybe drop some stats prediction. Do you think James Conner can hit 1,000 yards this year? He was really close in 2018 when he had Big Ben and played 13 games instead of only 10 this season. So let me know what you think, like I said. And make sure to like and subscribe, please. It'd mean a lot. Liking this video really helps make sure more people can see it. And subscribing means you get to see more content from me, Steelers related or otherwise. All right, guys, this is KMA Preston signing out. I'll see you guys later. I really appreciate it. Goodbye.